Hi, everybody. Welcome to PILU episode 3. I am
Hello,
Louise.
hello.
I am Louise Farr from Your Healing Journey.
And I am Paleki from Spiritual Medium Paleki.
Well, P, how's your week been?
Good, good. A lot of energy this week, though. I noticed there's a lot with the, Mercury's in retrogrades and all that stuff. But I just noticed this week was like energetically, for me personally, very, very heavy this week. So it was like a lot of sort of like had to do a lot of grounding and a lot of centering, sort of. I just found a lot of emotional stuff was processing through for me this week. So
Yeah, no, same here. And I had a reading from a local tarot card reader, and she turned a card over, and it looked like there was sort of an attachment, an energetic attachment to me. And I've been feeling it physically. And so I asked one of my colleagues to do a shamanic ceremony, extraction of spiritual intrusions, and it has helped. But with that said, things will come to the surface, right?
yeah,
When you have
100%. Yeah.
anything done, either Reiki or any of the other energetic modalities, it will bring things to the surface. So I've been laying low. I'm trying not to have conversations with family or anything like that. I'm just trying to stay still and quiet and be mindful of me.
And I think that's maybe a good thing to mention to people too, in case you don't have a lot of background or experience with energetic healing or that sort of work. Sometimes when you are actually working through something, purging something or releasing something, you can actually feel worse than before you started while it's coming out of your system because it's been in your pattern for so long. Then when it's reset, it's almost kind of like a rebirthing in ways sometimes, depending on what you're healing. Because I know there have been people at times, like even with the reading, it'll be a very intense reading, but they'll say, oh, it's like a year's worth of therapy kind of thing, And sometimes that's what it takes, is that big thing. So when Lou's talking about, the kind of crafter system, got to lay low, that's actually very normal just for anybody. If you've had any sort of a healing work done and maybe you think something went wrong or you're supposed to be feeling like incredible, like as soon as you go out of the room kind of thing, that's not actually always how it works. And that is something that a lot of people don't discuss, because they sometimes think that their healing should almost be instantaneous. And you have to think some of the blocks you're releasing, like, and Louise done a lot of her work over the years. So it's kind of like she already knows sort of where she's focusing. But if it's one of your first times ever doing work like that, it can actually be overwhelming. Or, I mean, I know some people like myself too, if I work on something really big, I actually tend to get physically sick. Like I can become nauseous, or it's almost like my system will wear down, that I'll get like the cold or the flu or something for like a week after while my body's purging itself. Then it resets into the new energy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When I was seeing clients, Reiki or shamanic work in person, I would tell them to take a couple of days afterwards and be not, take days off, but to be mindful, to be aware.
Watch their energy. Yeah.
Watch your energy around people, and maybe spend more time by yourself to process what's coming to the surface. And then there's other people that, will email me back or call me and say, well, I didn't feel a thing, but by gosh, I slept. This is the best night's sleep that I've had in years. So everybody will, process it in a different way
100%.
in their own time.
And, I think too, because you and I were discussing this earlier when we are doing the talks and that, when Lou and I are explaining something or describing something, it's from our personal experiences, like how we've resonated with something, what we picked up, how we learned something, what we were taught with something. So not everything that we say is necessarily maybe going to be what you experience or what you're feeling, but it is one of those things that we always say to everybody: as long as you feel that something on some level is shifting, whether it's physical, whether it's conscious, whether it's unconscious, it still means the healing's going through. It just depends on how heavy the healing is. Some of it might honestly, guys, take months and months before it starts integrating into your physical life. So I know a lot of people, especially with manifestation or visualization, and Lou, you and I have discussed this like so many times, you can visualize something or believe something or be open to receiving something, and it just doesn't fall in place. Like no matter what you're doing. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure my microphone stays where it's supposed to go. I apologize, guys. I was told last week by my mother that I was fidgeting, so I'm trying to make sure I'm not moving. My cat was outside last week, so if you notice me always looking over at him, I was trying to make sure he didn't jump off the deck. Okay, refocus. but what we're saying is sometimes when you're trying to manifest or visualize or draw things to yourself, because you've been in an old pattern for so many years, it could actually take months to reset the physical level of your actual life before you start seeing the results coming in. And that's where a lot of people get despondent too with healings, readings, anything like that. If they go, oh, I never instantly got the thing, we go, you weren't meant to. Your spirit needs to integrate it first, then it'll consciously give you the understanding of the lesson. And I think that's a big thing too for people, that they need to understand when you're dealing with a lot of soul work, you're doing it on a soul level, not necessarily your conscious brain level. So sometimes, like Lou said, some people might not feel anything when they're getting Reiki, like they might not, but then like you crash. And when you get that deep sleep, when you crash like that, it means your soul's resetting things. It means your soul's letting the body go into a resting stage, the repair stage, the healing stage. And people will notice too, especially, same thing, I guess, when you are having a really bad day and you just go nap. Like, and Lou and I are like huge fans of naps. We'll like throughout the day if we can. Yeah, a big. And for me, I don't know about you, Lou, but my nap is always my reset. Like when I'm having, my nap, I always wake up. It either feels more grounded or more centered. And it's just because I've given my spirit that time to focus on its own healing, what it needs, not necessarily have to panic about the goings on around the body at that time.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you. And you were saying, sometimes it'll take months, but sometimes it'll take years.
Oh,
if we've started our life traumatically, and you're 60, like my age right now, it will take years for some of these traumas and some of these things that you've experienced in your life. It's not going to happen overnight. And some people it does, and some people it does. But the majority of us this is a journey that me personally, that I'm devoted to this journey until my last breath. Yeah. There's always going to be something that comes to the surface, and how do I react to it? I just feel that my progression in this journey is I process it a little bit faster. I try not to dwell on it. I see it as a witness. I witness the situation and I release it, because once I know that it's not part of my journey, I'm able to let it go, to release it.
Yeah. And grief is another huge one like that, like grieving. That's another type of healing that can take years before you finally actually process the death, before you've actually, gone into the unconscious, working through the grief, the anger, all the stages that come with the passing, so that's a perfect example. Remember, your soul sometimes is going through a grief, even if it's not a death. So it could take you years, like Lou's saying, to process through. Now, the reason we're sort of kind of going this way with the conversation today is we kind of wanted to explain, because a lot of people oftentimes get caught up in the expectation of how you're supposed to heal, or how you're supposed to be if you're spiritual, if you follow a spiritual practice, or, I'm meant to adhere to this, or I'm supposed to be like this, or act like this, or I'm meant to, like Lou was mentioning, I meant to let go of all my stuff right away. Like it doesn't always happen that way, guys. Like your own spiritual practice is your journey. And so today we kind of want to explain this preconceived notion of what you're supposed to be spiritual, and how your spirituality is different compared to your religious practice, because one's dealing more with your connection to the universe, whereas one is a lot to do with also your soul's healing within the lessons that it's processing while it's a human.
Right. I was just looking at the definition that on Google, of course, they were asking, the difference between religion and spirituality. So religion is a specific set of organized beliefs and practices, usually shared by a community or a group. Spirituality is more an individual practice and has to do with having a sense of peace and purpose. Yeah. It also relates to the process of developing beliefs around the meaning of life and connection with others. So that's the difference between religion. We talked about religion last week. Yeah. And this week we wanted to talk a little bit about being spiritual and spirituality.
Now, some people we should put in here, you could use your religious practice as your spiritual practice as well. So they can
Yes.
piggyback
Yes.
with each other. But whereas religion is more kind of the set, like Lou said, the set doctrines and beliefs, your spirituality would be your personal connection to that religion, your personal connection to God with that religion, your personal connection to the universe using those sets of beliefs. But the beliefs themselves would be the religious practice kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what it explains here. Spirituality is a state of having a connection to God or the
Yeah.
spirit world,
Yeah.
right?
And again, like we should specify too, as we mentioned, if you haven't seen the other videos and this is your first one, when we use the word God, for myself, I use the word God because I don't really have another word that for me encompasses that greater being, but it doesn't mean that I see it as the male version. I see God as that universal source, but we may refer to the source, universe, divine being, you know. So in this case, we're using the word God. If that doesn't work for you, change it to whatever does. So when it comes to spirituality, I know a lot of people, unfortunately, because we are raised with the religious background and religious practice. And I've done this myself. I know, especially when I was first starting into spirituality and the alternate practices I went into, I almost applied my religious beliefs to the spirituality and that I had to adhere to all the rules that went along with it. So if I was doing a specific religious thing, it had to be done this way, it had to be this way. And I mean, a lot of people fall into it. When you're spiritual, you have to eat eat a certain way. You're only supposed to have certain things. You're not meant to have alcohol. You don't drink coffee. You don't have sugar. You're meant to dress a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way. And that works for some people. But some people can actually get so caught up in the process of trying to fit the spiritual practice that they almost lose their connection. And I mean, I know for me, a big part for me, for many, many years, I was vegan. And it was almost for me, I was doing veganism out of a sense of guilt because it's what you're supposed to do when you're really spiritual, when you're told you're very spiritual, you know, kind of thing. And for me, it was one of those that I love veganism and I have nothing with it, but it just didn't suit because for me, I love dairy. There's just something, my body loves it. I love the taste, and it just works. And it took me a very long time to integrate that it was okay for me to be like this and also have this spiritual practice that works. I mean, I drink coffee every day. I like sugar. I still have sweets kind of thing. And it's never, ever, ever affected my, connection to the universe. Lou, you eat meat. And I know for some people, that's a huge one, like you can't have meat and be spiritual. And there's many First Nations traditions where the practice of eating meat is actually ceremonial. It's like you're connecting to the spirit, you're taking in the energy of that animal. That soul decided to donate its physical body to you to be released back to the universe. There's so many different ways. So that's why we always try to tell people, find the practice that works for you, not forcing yourself to fit into somebody else's practice.
Yes, and with my practice of shamanism, I connect with my compassion helping allies. Mm-hmm. If I'm stuck on a certain issue, because I have learned through some people in the community that you shouldn't eat red meat before a ceremony, or you shouldn't eat red meat before this and that. And I journeyed with my compassion helping spirits, and I said, I've been doing this for years, but I really feel that I get grounded when I have a good piece of red meat before a ceremony, and it's important to be grounded when you journey, because you're the in between here in the middle world and the non-ordinary reality worlds. Yeah. So when I journeyed, my compassion helping allies showed me a big piece of juicy steak. Yeah. And it smelled good. I could smell it. I could eat it. I was salivating in my journey. And they said, listen, this is who you are. Yeah. Don't change anything about, the way you live here in the middle world. We will guide you. Yeah. When you come to our realm, we will guide you if you have any questions, but don't change who you are.
And that being said, some people love being able to go vegan. Like it's part of their spiritual journey where they go, this is my next step, or they want to be vegetarian, or they enjoy eating meat, like if you have the First Nations practices. So it's not about what's right or wrong. And I think that's a big thing. And that's one of those practices we take from religion to spirituality, is there's good or bad or right or wrong. And when it's your spiritual practice, nothing that you do is wrong. It works for your soul.
Exactly.
Like,
no, exactly.
And I mean, Lou and I have always been like that. I've been vegetarian for years. So, and that's just because I don't really want to eat meat. That's more of like a conscious decision for me, not necessarily with the spiritual practice. But like I said, the veganism was, and I was very heavily into yoga at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm supposed to cut out coffee and sugar. And I mean, I felt great. Physically, I felt like lovely and everything, and it was a wonderful sort of thing. But I found for me, it was so rigid that it took the fun out of it. And when people would go for a milkshake and I was going to go with them, I would sit at the table not having something because I was like, I can't do that, or a glass of wine kind of thing. And I think that's where we should explain to people, anything in moderation is fine.
Right.
Anything in moderation works for you where you are. It's when you start relying on it, or it's excess, or it's too much of that thing, that it could disrupt your system, So like drinking, for example, like having a glass of wine, it's not that big a deal here or there. Getting drunk than trying to do a ceremony. That's where you're going to run into issues, or that's where you can bump into spirits that are going to attach, or you're going to run into this other sort of physical stuff where you're not consciously blocking, or if you're heavily drugged out. And I mean, that's more for, I'm saying, like, if you're using drugs from a recreational standpoint, not from controlled ones for shamanism practices, or if you're doing like spirit journeys using different sort of plants and healing medicines, that's a different style. But again, that's sort of not my specialty myself, so I can't really talk about an expert in that realm there myself. But it really is more that thing. Once I kind of eased into it, and I was like, I'll have some wine when I want some wine. I'll have some coffee. I can eat some cookies if I want a cookie, kind of thing like that. I actually found that my relationship to God became stronger because I had that extra energy then to put back into the universe, rather than going, oh God, what does everybody think? What is everybody, sort of focusing on? And when you get into spiritual practice, and Lou and I have discussed this before, sometimes you get into the group mentality where everybody's sort of trying to keep up with everybody else, that keeping up with the Joneses, where you can't say anything that's not considered spiritual. You can't, do anything that's not spiritual. And one of the big things to remember is you are human. So you are still going to have your human needs, your wants, your desires. And again, if something is making you sick, or it's not good for you, or something is better for you in the long run, sure, go ahead and do it. But don't feel that there's going to be a judgment or punishment from the universe if you don't.
Exactly. It's important not to have any attachments to what other people think. As you know me, P, my favorite word is the F word.
Yeah.
And I use it regularly, even in my teachings. And that's who I am. The people who know me, and if it offends you, well, I guess I'm not the teacher for you.
Well, it starts with F and ends with UCK, right? And everybody knows Louise loves the word fire truck, so you're all good. So it's her go-to. But that's another thing. It's sort of like, remember, if it works for somebody not to swear, don't swear. But the issue becomes when you start needing to criticize, condemn, or put down somebody else for not following those belief systems. And again, I'm freely one of those people. I don't have a shame with my spiritual practice. And I'll tell people I have no qualms going through or saying something like, oh no, I was in a patch at one point where if you had known me when I was very staunch vegan, like animal rights kind of vegan, I was kind of very judgy for other people that weren't vegan because I was trying so hard to maintain this perfect setup of what everything was supposed to be, that anything outside of that challenged that or disrupted that for me, I almost had to pick at, because I was like, well, no, you're not allowed to enjoy yourself if I'm not allowed to have sugar. You're not allowed to do this. So it's almost like a guarding mechanism. And then I kind of stopped and I was like, I don't really think the universe is that concerned at the end of the day whether or not I have an ice cream or a milkshake kind of thing like that. I think they're going to be more concerned whether or not I'm deliberately going out of my way to harm other people and, kind of thing. And even in that case, they never judge. It's all going to be part of your learning and your soul will experience. But I guess for us, what we're trying to say is, and I mean, this is something Lou and I often will get in random discussions like this. Like one of us will have a week and then the other one will be like, oh my God, I know, like mirror week. And we have a lot of things, even though the topics might not be similar, the actual what we're going through, the back and forth. And one of the things that her and I know when we first met, it was always one of the things we discussed, was this whole concept of how hard sometimes it is to be human and spiritual, because when you're trying to be spiritual based on what you're reading or seeing or viewing, you're never good enough.
Yeah.
know?
It's like that in anything in life, right? Let it be you're an artist or a writer or a chef or anything. You're it's trying not to compare with anybody else. It's to be your authentic self, your true self, and shine that light that is you.
Yeah. But I think too, it's also when you even read books that are supposed to be like, oh, heal your trauma and forgive your past. Some things your soul is just not going to be ready to forgive. It doesn't mean you're not spiritual. It doesn't mean you don't have a connection to God. It doesn't mean you can't move forward in your spiritual journey. It just maybe means something that works for somebody else to release and heal it doesn't necessarily work for you right now. And that's totally fine. Or maybe a practice that works for somebody else. And a lot of times when I always tell people, be very careful when you're reading spiritual books or you're watching spiritual shows, as included, but I like to think we're keeping it a little real if we can. I always tell people be careful because remember, you're only reading what they want you to read. You're only reading what somebody wants you to perceive or, so it's very easy if I'm writing a book to go, oh my gosh, I fixed everything. I healed everything. I've released everything. I've moved through every block that I've ever been stuck on. It doesn't actually mean they've done it. It's just that's what I'll perceive. And then if I need to put on a show for half an hour while I'm on TV, because I always explain to people, if you're still in your human body, you still have things to work on or work through. That means there's other people that can help you, but based on what you've been through, you can also help other people where they are. So it's kind of like a back and forth. Everybody helps each other, and I'll have stuff I go through that Lou can help me with. Lou will have stuff I help her with, and then vice versa. Something she goes through, she'll talk to somebody else, and they'll have the right answer. There shouldn't be a shame in saying I don't have something solved. And sometimes when it comes to being spiritual, we have this belief that you're supposed to hit such a perfect level that nothing disrupts you, nothing bugs you, nothing knocks you out of balance, And a great example, I guess, for me is I'm very protective over children and animals. So no matter how spiritual I become, if somebody does something to a child or to an animal, I'm going to have an issue with that. And maybe it's not spiritual to have that issue, but I'm okay with that where I am in the universe. I said, to God, I said, I'm cool if somebody hurts an animal or hurts a child, that I'm not going to be okay with that. I'm not going to fight that. I don't need to fight it. I don't need to change that belief. I'm not going to actively get involved in if it's not mine or carry anger that doesn't need to be mine. But it doesn't mean if I don't see something being done that I don't have the right or the soul want to be able to say something to sort of help realign that if I feel that that's necessary.
Yeah. And you were talking about books and things. I have, oh my gosh, hundreds of books that I've read throughout the years. And within the first chapter, I know if it resonates or if it fits my journey at that time. And really, when you read these books, it is like you were saying, their story, how they proceeded with their healing and with their journey and everything. But there's never a follow-up book that sort of talks about, oh, frig, something else has come to the surface and my life is shit again and I'm struggling and everything. So it's to be discerning, be discerning in who you ask for help in your journey and the books that you read, and usually word of mouth, people that have read books, and you think, oh geez, like I've said that to P a lot of times, oh, I've just read this book, I think you might resonate with it. And sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Our journey, we said that last week in the episode, Our journey is ours.
Yeah.
And it's important to surround yourself with people that you can trust with your story, because not everybody will be kind, unfortunately, even in
And
the
it's not. It's
spiritual
true.
community.
Yeah. But I think too with this, it's also, and that's a good point there. It's not that we're saying like avoid, but sometimes when you are doing some inner healing or you're releasing something, especially if it's to do around family trauma and you still have that family in that, sometimes while you're working on the healing, establishing it, getting it really rooted in your soul, resetting that old belief, you don't need to advertise to everybody that you're doing it right off the bat. Like when you're grouped in and when it's settled, and I know some people, and again, this is not, everybody's their own individual, but sometimes it's an actually happen a lot in relationships when somebody's working through something and the partner's not ready to express or the partner's not ready to go through something. And then it's almost, I feel like if I push the partner and we go, yes, but if you push the partner, you're just pushing a person who might end up not wanting it to be, or, not being ready for that space. So you have to sometimes be okay with going, my journey is my journey. And when I'm ready to, if I'm ready to, then I can also share that journey with you. And if that works, then yes, let's go side by side. But again, it's this preconceived thing that, and I hate to sort of seem like we're diminishing, because we're really not. What we're trying to make people aware of today is your spiritual practice is not a 1, 2, 3 done. It's a 1, 2, 3 new thing to work on. 1, 2, 3 new thing to heal. 1, 2, 3 new thing you're working through. To have this belief that you're just going to get done. And I mean, manifestation is a perfect example of people who are like, I'm going to be wealthy. I want money. I want money. I want money. I want money. And then maybe something happens that you all crash and you lose all your money for some random reason. And you go, what the hell? It didn't work. I was supposed to be. It's not that it didn't work. It's that the universe is trying to challenge a belief that's blocking you from drawing it to you. So maybe in childhood, you were told you're not allowed to have money. So you hit this moment and then you have to catch it instead of going, oh, what the hell? You have to go, oh, wait, that's right. Old belief resurfacing. Thanks so much. Catching that, reset, release, universe. I'm manifesting my abundance now. So, and that's where people get caught, because nobody's ever told that you're going to sometimes have the fall in order before you get the rise, kind of thing like that. And it's basically, well, if you believe strongly enough, you can draw that soulmate to you. If you believe this, you can have the dream job. If you believe this, and it's not that you don't believe it. Sometimes you first have to remove the blocks keeping you from the belief, and pretending a block's not there doesn't necessarily benefit you, because again, it's that thing of like, oh, well, I'm super spiritual, therefore I have no concerns. And I mean, Lou and I'll tell this to Lou all the time. If I come across anybody, spiritual or not, and you tell me that you have no issues in your life, I am very wary of you. Like, not in a rude way. I'm just like, what are you not paying attention to? Or what are you avoiding? And that's not in a mean way I say that. It's that every human is gifted with the potential for growth. So whether
Right.
that growth is that you're able to help somebody else or you're learning something, if you get to a place where you go, oh, I'm so spiritual, I've advanced, I go, no, if you were there, you would be dead.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb is when you die, you're done your lessons. That's the quickest way to gauge. So any spiritual healer, and like this is always what Lou and I say. Again, when you're going to the healer, you're again, trust your intuition. You're gonna want to hope that this healer has the knowledge that they need in order to be able to heal. But again, you can go to the world's best healer. If you don't gel with them or their style, it's not you. Like, it just could be that you go, oh, our spirits just didn't work. Thank you for the beautiful honoring. It just doesn't work for me. Like, I'll have somebody that comes in for a reading and I'll go, boom, here it is. And they go, don't get it, don't understand it. Next person comes in, I'll say something and I go, don't quite understand. And they go, oh my God, that's the most specific thing I've ever heard. Only dad would have known that. Like, so each person's going to be different. But what we're trying to say is a healer can help you on your journey. Your spirituality is to help you with your journey, not define your journey.
Yes.
And that's where it
Yes.
gets a little tricky for some people to differentiate that.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I say that to people that come to see me all the time is if it doesn't resonate with you, there are other practitioners out there that you might resonate with. We're not here to be crutches for people. We're here to support people and to empower people so that they can move forward in their journey.
Yes. And I mean, too, you have to see it as well. I always explain to people, you can have an amazing energy. You're like, I'm peaceful now. I've released all the drama that I don't need. And then one of your children disrupts you. You can be super peaceful and your partner disrupts you. You can be super peaceful and somebody at work disrupts you. As long as you're interacting with other people, you can stand the chance to get disrupted, because sometimes when we get angry, and this is something that I think for me, and I struggled with for many years for myself, because in my family there is a lot of anger genetically that comes down the generations in the family, like grandparents, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I always had this thing that I was like, I cannot get angry. I will not get angry. I'll never let myself be angry. And then I realized there's a difference between anger where I'm taking it out on somebody, and anger when you violated my soul truth and my spirit standing up for itself.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
where a lot of people get it. And the difference is, when I get that anger, I'll step into it and go, no, you're not allowed to do that. But then when I've expressed it, I find then I can release it.
Yes.
I used to do this thing where I was like, be the nice one, even if this person's being mean to you, even if they're yelling at you, this person's using you. Don't call them out on it, because it's not spiritual. Spiritual people just accept everything. Spiritual people are okay with everything. And it's not that you're not okay with something. It's that when you start working on your soul journey, it'll actually get harder for you to disregard the things that are violating your spiritual truth.
Yes.
And that's where it gets tricky for people, because sometimes maybe you did have a partner that it didn't bug you until you started going, not liking the way you talk to me. Or you got this work colleague that you're like, not liking the way you're taking all the credit for this. Like, so, you get these things where we say to people, having your emotions is human. Letting them control you is where some of the issues may be coming in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
being angry and letting it go, if you can, cool. If you want to stay angry, sit down and then assess, am I angry because of this situation, or has this triggered something from my past that is unresolved, that this anger is trying to get my attention? There's always teaching in every emotion. And that's why, like, when you see it, or the gurus and the yogis and all of this thing where everything's beautiful and everything's peaceful, it's not to say that you don't have those beautiful moments, but it's also to say that you haven't failed, or there's nothing wrong if you accidentally step into a moment where you go, ooh, I'm supposed to be working on that. Forgot about it. Cool. It's okay. Catch it, reset, move forward. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they have this thing where they almost get shamed or embarrassed for having their human moments, because they're supposed to have devoted so much of their energy to their spiritual practice.
Yeah. Well, we're living a human life. We're not dead yet. We're here on this earth, and shit's going to happen. There's things that's going to disrupt you, disrupt your thought process. Let it be even driving. I said that to people many times. Mm-hmm. When I win the big bucks in lottery, I'm hiring a driver. Yeah. Because I don't enjoy driving anymore. Mm-hmm. And he has seen me feel angry.
I'll just buy a private island with no cars, so you can literally just walk.
Oh, right. Yes, I'll get
even better.
I'll get a hut there. Yes, that would
there
be
you
perfect.
Go. Shoot bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, if I win, we're not living in huts. Don't rough it. No.
Well, a little hut with a toilet and running water.
No, you can if you want. Like love it for you. You can come up and visit me in the mansion on the hill after. I don't camp, and I don't live in huts. I'm again, another beautiful thing I've accepted in my life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've never lived in a hut, so I think I wish to have the experience, and then make a choice if I wish to move into the mansion.
And you know what? The beautiful thing is, Louise can have the experience, and I can learn about it from her rather than having to experience it myself. So once again, we can help each other grow.
Yes. This is the partnership we have
in the mansion.
Yes, this is the partnership we have, and I'm fine with that.
That's there perfect. You go, right? See, so I'll look out on the deck and see you shivering in your hut, and I'll be like, love you. So much universal love to you. Oh, can't hear you over the karaoke machine. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I can see that. And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll just start my little fire by the ocean, and
There you
yeah,
go, right?
that's fine.
So again, but you can see what we're trying to say, guys. We are joking, like we still have a sense of humor, and like that's something oftentimes that people think you can't do anymore when you're spiritual. You can't make jokes anymore. You can't have your sense of humor anymore. You have to be very austere, very serious. And if that works for you, thumbs up, like awesome. It doesn't work for me. Like I mentioned last week, I do not do well with the rigid practice. Like I like mapping stuff out for me, but if something else is given to me as this super rigid practice or philosophy, it actually causes me more stress than anything, because I have the type of brain that will over panic, like, oh my God, am I doing it correctly? Am I doing it correctly? So, and for me, that's how it was many, many years. And then I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, breathe. God has bigger things that they're worried about than whether or not you're having milk in your coffee, like, and whether you're having a cup of coffee. No, really, because sometimes because it's almost drilled into you from your religious practice. So it's so much easier to carry it to your spiritual practice. Like Christianity, your 10 sins, you know what I mean? Like, don't violate this. You don't do this. You have to do this. You have to, on Sundays, you have to, so
Yeah.
you get it in your head that it's almost though religion or spirituality should be a scary thing, because you have to worry about doing it wrong. And if you do it wrong, there's a punishment or a judgment, or it means you haven't tried hard enough. And
Right.
the thing for me is what I explain to people: every single person is their own sort of natural healer. You really are. Every single person
Yes.
has their own gift. And maybe your healing comes from that you're an incredible artist and you can create incredible art. Or maybe your healing is that you are very logical and practical, and your gift is that you can help people organize something that they may not be able to. Maybe yours is that you're sensitive to energy and you can pick up people's energy. Just because your life and your journey doesn't look like somebody else's doesn't mean it's any lesser, or doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, it's a different process and different path. And I mean, as I've mentioned in videos before, I love Reiki. It's beautiful. I have like fairy Reiki. I did all my training in fairy Reiki because I resonate with the elementals myself. But I just never really took to Reiki myself as my modality. It just doesn't work for me. Like it's, I love the practice. I know how to do Reiki. I understand the concept, but for me, it just doesn't work, because when I'm doing healing, because I'm a channeler, I naturally work with people's angels already. So when I'm doing a healing, they're telling me what we're working on. And we go, oh, you're resolving this childhood issue. Interesting. And then we're pulling at that energy, and then we're chatting. And then I'll tell you after you've had your healing, oh, this is what we worked on. You were holding on to this because you had a miscarriage and you were carrying the trauma, or you had this, an abusive partner, or, so mine's slightly different, where Lou's working on the energy stuck. I'm almost like, here, look, this is why you're stuck, So there's so many different ways to apply. And Lou's healing is just as connected to the universe as my healing. And like I said, some people don't want here, 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 here. They want the other approach that Louise will give, either with the shamanism or the extraction, or, there's so many different techniques. And Louise is different in the sense that she'll work with your compassionate helpers. So she's going to work with your guides, your compassionate helpers, your spirit helpers, and the same thing, to get information, to draw it out. For me, mine's different because I'm used to it. So I'll go, oh, your mom's here working with us. Here's your mom. Mom's doing this. Mom wants you to know this message. This is why you picked up this trauma, because mom died and you never say goodbye, blah, blah, blah. So, each healing is going to be completely different. And vice versa. You may get somebody that doesn't do any sort of alternative energy healing. They might be very rigid in that they're a nurse, and their practice is the physical, practical, realigning your body to help your body get better. It's still just as valid and beautiful. It's just, we have to get to a place where we stop comparing each other to each other and start going, am I doing better for myself than where I was last year?
Yes. Yes.
And I think for people that could be a deal changer, because I know I try that. Like that's one thing that I genuinely really try to focus on, is if I'm feeling worse than I was last year, I don't beat myself up. I go, honey, what have you been doing that's knocked you off balance? Not in a shameful way, not in a bad way, just, honey, what's going on? What knocked you off balance? And then vice versa, I'll go, oh, I'm feeling much better. And I'll go, great. What did you work on this year to change that?
Right. Yeah. No, it's a continuous, like you said, reassessment.
Yes.
Of what's happening in your life and things, especially if something triggers you uh, the same, like you said, like maybe the same, a person has the same dream, or for
Yes.
me, really, I need to work on why do I feel angry when I drive, when people don't follow, the rules and stuff. That's stuff that I have to work on, and not necessarily the person that cut me off, or
Now that would be that you're not in control of the situation because you can't control what other people are doing.
No, you can't. You just can't control. Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
And I think that, you know what, that's maybe a good thing. And how are we doing for time? Because maybe we should.
Yeah, we have to wrap it up.
Yeah. So I think maybe this is a good way to end it this week. It feels like it went very fast. I'm sorry.
It did.
Did a lot of chatting today. But I think that's what this is something to focus on. No matter what type of spiritual journey you're on, remember, other people are not on the same journey, so they still could disrupt you. It doesn't mean they're bad or wrong or they're doing something negative. It's just, it disrupts. But you are also allowed to say, that no longer vibrates with where I'm trying to go in my journey, so I can step back from that, or I can distance myself from it. Doesn't mean you don't love the person. It just means their vibration no longer vibrates in peace or harmony with yours. And again, that happens with partners, happens with friends, happens with everything, and you stay with somebody in your journey if they grow along with you, and that's that. I think too, that's also, Lou, a part of the reason why you and I have stayed so many friends for so long. Lou and I had a lot of other hobbies outside of our spiritual practice that we both liked. We're both artists as well. We both there's that aspect of traveling. So we'll do our road trips. There's things that Lou and I had, but we would bring the spiritual practice in. So we'll drive to the beach for the day to relax, chill out, and we'll have our spiritual journey on the beach. But then we'll go have a really great lunch because we both love good food.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're trying to say is, when you're spiritual, it should fit into your life, not make your life fit it. And I'm talking, and again, it's wherever you are, that whatever you want to do. But I can tell you from experience, I know I have done this for many, many years. When you push yourself, you're going to become miserable in your spiritual journey and just want to give it up, because it seems like it's rigid, it's unfriendly, it's unhappy, you're always doing something wrong. And when you hit the moment and you understand that you can never do anything wrong, you're just learning an experience, or you're experiencing a potential lesson, then you have a different mindset on it, and you allow yourself to be a human. And remember, there is a lot of amazingly fun human stuff that doesn't have to involve angels, or doesn't have to involve crystals, or doesn't, and you can integrate them. Like I said, I wear my crystals all the time, but I still want to go out dancing when if friends are going dancing or something. There's still that. Well, that's when I was younger, I guess. I'm a little too old to stay as late as I used to, so can't do that anymore. But we went to that wedding. Lou and I have danced our butts off. We have.
Yes, we have. No, it should not change the personality. It shouldn't change your personality,
unless
who you are.
Your personality is one that you don't like, or you're not happy with that energy. If I guess what I mean in the sense is, Lou's saying don't change you, but I'm saying, if you're a very angry person and you hate life, and then your practice changes that's cool. So we kind of want to specify that, because what Lou's more saying is, Lou is still Lou, whether she has her practice or not. It's just her practice helps Lou cope better with Lou's life.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. P.
Right? Yes. And how does he wrap up the show? And that's my final say, or something.
I don't know. I don't watch him.
I should specify, I'm not a doctor, for anybody who's now wondering. No, do not question me with doctor.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy. I could never be a doctor and study that much.
I don't know if there's anything I'd want to study one topic on. Beautiful. All right. Well, with that, my friends, thank you. This one did run a little longer than normal, but we definitely appreciate you hanging on right till the end. And again, if you want to follow our social media pages, mine is Angel Messages by Paleki on Facebook, spiritual.medium.paleki on Instagram, and on YouTube, where we are uploading these videos, we are under Spiritual Medium Paleki on my channel there. And on Podbean, you can find us under P-Lou, P-Lou. And we should hopefully be on most of the podcast platforms soon, but we're having some trouble with Apple. And Louise is journeying with Louise Lang Farr on Instagram. and
Yes.
Your Healing Journey with Louise Lang Farr on Facebook.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
so that's a mouthful, but hopefully, and everything will be underneath the video as well, guys, if you missed that and you were interested in anything that we offer. So thank you so much for tuning in again. We hope you have an absolute blessed and beautiful week, and we appreciate you watching episode number 3 of Pilu.
Bye, everybody. Bye,
Take care.
P.
Love you.
Love you too.